Okay, we are live. Welcome to episode 9, right? Today's episode
Yes.
9, almost 10. So we have been doing this for 9 weeks. Time flies, huh?
Hmm. Nine
Uh,
wonderful weeks.
oh no, exactly. Jan is a soul purpose alchemist, and we have created a soul purpose group. Actually, last Friday, August 8th, was a year anniversary. And wow, a lot happened in the last year. And we are gathering together in case if it is your first time watching this, and this is episode 9, so there's the 1 to 8 already. We're gathering together to have a conversation around the topic of soul purpose. And things has evolved, and we are focusing on helping outlet soul-led entrepreneurs. Soul-led enthusiasts can join as well. And I think one of the things that we want to make sure to communicate with the world is that I almost feel like, Jan, we are bridging the gap. And then this is simple extension and reflection extension of how I have been sort of operating in the world, where I have been in like a different field in industries, right? Just like I have lived in 3 different continents, right? I have always been somebody who wants to connect the dots, because let's say if there's culture, if there's a country, if there's an industry such as, okay, spiritual space, personal development space, holistic health space, um, mindfulness space. And because I being a curious person in nature, I felt like I wanted to step in and find out the answer, or something that kind of feeds my curiosity. And I felt like I learned even different spiritual teachers, right? I don't have one mentors, but I wanted to study with different people, different people's perspective. And I think the practice and the work that I have done inside of me is to simply integrate, to connect the dots, right? And there is this sort of like a energy when you go to spiritual container and space. There's an energy, right? There's an energy of softness, right? There's an energy of energetics, right? And almost like they want to avoid accomplishing anything, right? And then when you go to the personal development industry, it's all about achievement. It's all about their definition of success. And you know what I mean? So different field, different industry has different kind of energetics. And I it's interesting. I felt like a lot of the stuff I like, but I felt like didn't belong fully into every single industry, because if I'm too much in the spiritual space, I felt like something missing. What about this physical world, right? We want to do things and create things and innovate things. If I'm too much in the personal development industry, you guys are so busy motivating on each other. And what about sort of relaxing into the being a little bit? Does that make sense? So then I was in different space, and I felt like, I like this part of this industry. I like this part of the industry, but I cannot be in just one industry, because I felt like that energy wasn't fully balanced and integrated for me to express fully what I came here to do. That's why I sort of pick and chose different things to integrate. And I feel that that's what sort of we do, right? To help people align with the soul. And we do want to create, because this physical world is the realm we came here to create, right? But then where do we create from? We want to create
Mm,
from the spiritual place, right? So creating just from the material point of view, I see people getting exhausted, overwhelmed, and the hustling and grinding is the language that represent their identity. And when I started to integrate all the information and education that I had in, when I started to really understand that, oh, what is desire, right? Desire is the seed of creation. If there's no desire, there's no creation. Because what is creation? We create based on the desire. Okay, why do we desire what we desire? Because where the desire comes from, why each one of us has different desire? Oh, because the soul is the individuation of the whole, and if we desire something, it means that that potentially is already in the spiritual plane, and creating really means to actually manifesting to make it observable in the physical world, and that is the process of creation. So then it's interesting because we were talking about tactics and space between tactics last week. The reason that we don't need to really focus on the tactics and strategy is because each one of us already knows, right? If you follow tactics and if you let tactics lead, it means that you are giving power to something outside of you that didn't come from within you, and want that to move your energy of creation. So it's very interesting. I was listening to somebody, uh, the podcast thing this morning. I have a practice of walking in the morning, listening to an inspirational stuff. And when somebody says, I don't know, that's your ego self that's covering the soul knowing, leading that moment and say, I don't know. Tell me what the options are. And if you really tap into the soul knowing, there's nothing that we do not know. So that's the practice, right? How can we come from that knowing place to that's what soul led means, right? We're not helping ego led entrepreneurs who doesn't know,
Mhm.
right? Soul led means that you are on a mission to awaken the world because soul is awakened and that is what you want to see in the physical world. But soul led also means that you're leading your life and the business from the place of knowing, not strategy or tactics. So, what we're doing in this Soul Purpose group is to help people understand that is who they are. And then also, often people have this separation between business and spirituality, right?
Mm.
And then people have this sort of assumption and perception that the world that we're living in, the physical, the observable world, is the reality. Spirituality is my happy place, whatever that is, right? They have this
Yeah.
separation. So for me, because I love the analogy of we are all artists of the soul, business is an extension of your identity, right? Because business has branding. Branding is identity, and identity is who you're being in this world. So that's why the soulpreneur phase one start with that. That's where we want to begin. Who you are being in this world, and who you truly are is the soul essence. But who you are being in this world contains stories that we have lived, because we cannot express ourselves without our thoughts and language and all that. So all the stories that we have lived needs to be a part of the product and the identity that you express yourself. So the integration of that, right? And many people, even in the soulpreneur, I said that, let's say if you're doing coaching or energy healers, people choose to, when people select their, let's say, profession from the place of, oh, what do I really want to do, right? Not what's out there, but what do I really want to do? It is a process of, I mean, life has already guided you, right? All the life that you have lived and pain that you have gone through, every single step, life has guided you to actually manifest what is it that you want to do, right? I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't have the life that I have lived, right? I There are a lot of people who are injured who become physical therapists or chiropractor, right? That's the path that the soul journey has taken those people, because that's what was meant to be. So instead of asking, I don't know what I want to do, right? Reflecting back your entire life, oh, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I have been experiencing. Life has guided me to. By the way, when I say life, I mean God. And when I say God, I mean life, right? So life has guided me to experience this so I can use this experience to leverage to help others. Everything is That's why everything is perfect. No matter how much pain people might have gone through, there is a reason that they have gone through to be able to turn that into a gift. And I think when we tap into that, something magical happen. And business is I don't know if I told you. I mean, business is an organization, right? And an entity to create service. And work in Japanese means things to serve. So serving people needs to be an extension of your identity, and your identity is who you're being in this world. So the spiritual practice and the business growth cannot be separated if you really want to live a fulfilling life. So all the avenues, right? Integrating and bridging the gap between what the mainstream is assuming to be, and then we are disrupting that perspective. And that's what we're here to do. That was my introduction.
There's so much there. I probably
Yeah.
should have written some stuff down. But uh, okay, so the I mean, why always comes to mind for me. But yeah, so everything is spiritual. There's nothing in life that is not spiritual. I love that. I love that. I actually spoke to someone earlier this week. I was inviting them to the energetics of money, and his response was like, he didn't know how to feel about it, because he was like, but money is not spiritual, right? And so I said to him, you really have to come to this if that's what your belief is. Um, and business is not, and marketing is not, and all of these things. And for such a long time, when I began my journey, I'm also a bit of a dot connector, but when I began my journey, I started as a personal trainer, and and when I wanted to take the entrepreneurial sort of, not work for a gym, but to, open my own space, or and then you have to start wearing all the various different hats. That became quite challenging, and I had, honestly, at that point, I had a very rudimentary, very logical, mind-based idea of what spirituality was, which I had picked up through some 12-step fellowships that I was in, which I really thought that I had that I was spiritual, but I realize now that it was all in the mind. It was a mental construct that I was wearing as an identity. There was no meditation, there was no inside job, it was something that I had learned in a book, and which is, anyway, I go on a tangent there. And so when I took the entrepreneurial journey, I started to, you're on social media, and you start looking for mentors and guides, and the very first people that I came across was it was a men's group, basically, and it was the sort of the attitude there was build the plane on the way down, like the build the build the landing gear on the way down. So everything, it's like, you want to start a business, you got to do it in like, cool, today's Friday, on Monday I want to see your business type thing. And it was a lot of very masculine, very like Jocko Willink and David Goggins, and very strong language. And that's fine. Some people have got great success under those conditions, but the problem was for me, and you mentioned it before we got on the call, was that people, myself included at that point, we adopt the traits of someone else, something that works for someone else, and then we think it's going to work for us. And maybe there are other people that are doing that, and they win the lottery draw of that. Actually, it does work for them. But what most people that claim to have some type of magic solution in marketing or business is, they don't tell you the iceberg underneath of all the people that never had success with it. They only show you the people that did. And and I was one of the people in the bottom part of the iceberg, the 2/3 of it that I drowned out. It was but it was because I'm not a 5 a.m. club type of person. I'm a silent mover, I've realized. I was telling Sam, my accountability buddy, that as soon as I start when I start to vocalize stuff, when I start to set actionables, that I start telling, it loses all of its energy for me. And I have to lean into that. It's what I love, being on this journey with you, is you just say to me every now and then, you're like, have you got something to show me? And then I'm like, not yet. And you're like, okay. And it's just interesting that, anyway, if we come back to the question that I wanted to ask you, with the soul-led entrepreneurial journey, is a big thing that we talk about in the community is that, as you said, the tactics are almost irrelevant, right? Whatever you intuitively decide to do, whatever tactic you choose, if it comes from the right place, there's 100% success rate. But if you're doing it because someone told you it's a magical framework, and every the success rate is not as high. So my question to you is, right, because I wanted to post about this in the community, but I'm struggling with the language. I know it inside, but I'm struggling to say it. But the embodiment of who I truly am, or the embodiment of the message I want to carry, how does one that's like in the very beginning of this, they resonate with the language of, they see soul-led entrepreneur and they light up. They're like, this is magical. They see and they're interested. And then and then we talk about, like, don't forget about the tactics for now. Find the deepest part of you, and look for the what you want to express. And so, in the shortest possible way, what is the elevator pitch? Let's call it the elevator pitch of the Soul Purpose community for soul-led entrepreneurs.
How long is the elevator? Which floor are we
floors. On? 15 floors.
So I can come up with the elevator pitch. Before I share my elevator pitch, since the elevator is long, I usually don't share any elevator pitch, because my answer is different depending on who I'm talking to, right? And the answer is different based on what exactly people ask me, because I can say something, and if the language that I would like to use, because that's my frequency, doesn't land on somebody else who is in different frequency, now I'm going to fail to draw that person in. Yeah.
Invite us into your frequency.
So, are you essentially asking what is it that we are doing in Soul Purpose Group and Soulpreneur fundamentally,
Yeah,
right?
I'm asking what you believe is important for a, if it's not primarily tactics, what is important for a soul-led entrepreneur to focus on, especially in the beginning?
Oh, I can tell
Uh,
you right now. I can tell you in very we can be on the second floor and just going down to the first floor, which is
mhm,
about 10 seconds. The juice of what we do, Jan, is to express yourself fully. That's it. And the reason that that is the elevator pitch is that you want to be you, right?
mm,
You want to be you, and many people are struggling to identify who that you is. Many people are struggling to find who they can be because there are so many boxes in the world. There's an assumption that they need to fit into the boxes. There
they have to
is,
find the right box.
yeah, to find the right box.
Mm,
But what if you can actually create your own box? This is the difference between tactics and leading with you. What if you can create? What if you instead of fitting into the right box, which is you can be tactics or a certain way of doing it, but you are the box,
mhm,
right? You are not creating the box. You, who you are, is the box, and that box doesn't need to be solid. Could be fluid because who you are at the soul level doesn't have any form and shape for, by the way, but who you're being and becoming in this world is constantly evolving. It is the process of remembering, but also it is the process of creating, right? So I think what we want to understand, bottom line, Jan, is I don't think many people understand what identity and personality is.
mhm.
Like, for instance, I was really interested in, I mean, coming from a dance background and moving the body, I was interested in the health of the body. And when I dove into what body is, I needed to study the mind. And then when I started to study the mind, I needed to investigate the soul. It's just a natural progression, the depth that we
Yes.
go through, right? But here's the thing though, after I investigated and then examine what spirituality and soul is, for me, I realized that there's nothing that I need to study about the soul. I
Mm,
need to study personality and identity because the way that I see is soul and body just are, and the mind is the bridge.
mhm,
Yeah, the body is a reflection of the mind, and the mind is a gate for the soul to connect with the body. So
mhm,
when I started to understand, oh, I don't need to try to discover the soul, I just need to understand what's in the way to just be. And then
mm,
the mind is what dims and covers. So, including the nature and the dynamic of personality and identity. So, I do I do enjoy exploring the dimension of the soul, but right now I'm at the point where the more we understand the nature of identity and what identity is the conception of you. Identity is how you form who you think and feel you are in the world in this relative contextual field. The more we understand that, the more we simply allow the soul to express through us because we are preventing that from happening. The mind is preventing that from happening. So going back to your question and the elevator pitch, which uh, has already arrived on the first floor, is that I think the Soul Purpose Group and the Soulpreneur is a place to allow every single one of us to express ourselves fully. And that is freedom. I think that is what we're here to do. And from the personal, um, level, but from professional and business building level. And I feel like if your business that you're building is not your true expression, and let's say, for instance, because the revenue is growing, you sort of don't honor your true expression, at some point there's going to be some sort of reflection of that misalignment life informing you, and something is going to happen. I feel like we're here to just do that, to express who you are. And there's a massive freedom in that, and a massive, when you are able to tap into the essence of who you are to express fully, you can really touch people. That's what all the musicians and artists do, right? It's an expression of them. So I think we want to bridge the gap between what business is. Business is an extension of your expression, and to really help people understand that, because I feel like many people on the online coaching space, people are hypnotized by the false assumption that marketing, you have to be doing in a certain way to be able to market yourself. I think there's a
And that there's a separation between
yeah,
the spiritual part of you and the business part of you.
yeah. And then we do want to understand, discern the difference between, am I feeling uncomfortable because this is not in alignment and resonating with me, versus am I feeling uncomfortable because of my belief that I'm operating from, right? So the entire process of building the business, we do want to be working with our belief, because belief is interesting. Belief is what's true for us, right? So if the activity or the action that we must take next is beyond our belief, you will feel uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not natural for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the entire game that we're here to play. The more belief we expand, we can create something greater, because we cannot create anything beyond our belief. This is something that we often talk about. That I haven't said this, but I love this line. We always say we can never outperform our self-image. So what that means is that the creation in life can never be greater than the belief that you're operating from. Yeah. So people can have any desire of what they want to create, right? But what I want to urge everybody is that anybody and everybody can dream big, because when somebody, well, this is something that actually I'm gonna talk about a little bit in the energetics of money next week, because many people got the influence of the ego backwards. Like, for instance, people think that, oh, let's say somebody's making, a lot of money, or having a luxurious life, or accomplishing a lot of stuff, right? The more we do things and the more we expand, people in general think that that can be driven by the ego, right? But I look at the other way around. If somebody said, oh, I can just stay small and I don't need to expand, that is actually the story of the ego. If the soul is here to express fully, you can have anything and anything that and everything that you want to experience. So the bigger that you can dream of, the less ego is, depending on how you are approaching that perspective. But the freer you feel, the more you're in alignment with the soul, right? So if you are accomplishing something big, and if you're attached to that accomplishment, if that having and doing is defining you, that is an ego, right?
And if it's at the expense of other people or any of
Exactly.
that type of untoward business practices. But
Exactly.
if we keep it in the context of you are sharing your gift with the world, you know.
Yeah, the bigger you become and the more you grow your business and accomplishment, the more people can find you to touch others. That's nothing to do with the ego. That's a
Mm,
fuller expression of the soul. So the motive and where you're coming from is important. But when somebody says, "Oh, my life is just fine and I don't need to do more," and then when somebody think that more is the product of the ego, that opinion is the ego, right?
mm,
So staying small is also can also be very much a motive of the ego.
mm. So would you say, part of being in the community is figuring out how you get in your own way? And, because also maybe some clarification around, so you've mentioned identity, personality, and ego.
Hmm.
And I guess some people might get confused or think that they're all the same or, um,
Yeah, for me, the difference between identity and personality and ego is the difference between water and liquid and fluid.
mhm.
Yeah, it's the same, but there's a different nuances to it, right? Now, personality, ego is not good or bad. Um, when the ego is a mental construct, right? The ego self, we can use the term ego in a neutral way. The ego self is a mental construct. In a mainstream, ego can be, in a non-academic space, ego can be used as an extremely negative thing,
Mhm.
right?
Like egotistical or
Yeah,
whatever, that
yeah,
type of
yeah.
language.
Ego is driven by the survival part of us, for sure. But it's a necessary part of us, right? Because it keeps us alive.
Hmm.
So to understand the role of the ego and how to utilize that by choice instead of letting that to drive us is also what we want to contemplate. The difference between personality and identity is personality is a concept of self, the self image, the person that you're seeing yourself as. The it could be the characteristic can be a part of the personality, right? But it's the viewpoint and it's the person who you are becoming in this physical realm. It contains psychology, it contains patterns and belief. Identity for me is much much broader because you can identity is
Mm, mhm.
identification basically, right?
Yes,
But it's a mental activity though because you can identify yourself as the soul. That is
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
an intellectual exercise. It's
Yes.
the mind.
It's a label.
Yes, it's a leveling. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so personality, as I like to understand it, is it's the character that I'm choosing to play.
Hmm.
Maybe not even consciously, but it's the character that I believe that I need to play in order to survive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I wouldn't say personality is just driven by the survival. I do see the room in personality to be very creative, right? To the part of the personality that's more expansive. Yeah, it's not. I mean, ego, personality, identity definitely overlaps, but there
Mm.
is it's a different viewpoint of the same thing, but it's not covering entirely the exact same thing. Yeah, it's interesting how the nuances and the language means different. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like Sandra Maitri's, it's not her definition, but she speaks about it in one of her books that the ego is at its most basic, it's a self-reflective mechanism, right? And that's if we wonder like why do we have a soul? Why do we have an ego? Why do we have, and it's the ego is it's a reflective mechanism, and unconsciously if our if we believe it to be all that there is, then it will self-destruct. But if we put it in its proper place, using your language, the essence view, and this is something that I would love to actually pick your brain about, is this essence view, the personality in the proper place. So the because for a long time, especially in my early spiritual, I guess I'm still in the early days, but there was a difference between, there was a duality between the soul and the personality, or the relative me, and now I'm sort of more of like uh, they stacked sort of thing. It's a lens that I can operate through. The personality it's not there's the personality and here's the essence. It's the essence is operating through the personality, um, but it still has a lot of the trappings, right, of the unconscious beliefs that every now and then come to that get involved with the present moment.
Yeah. So I think one of the missing links in a lot of the spiritual work for me is the I think I might have mentioned this in other conversation. I was so interested in Jan. I was also like you, like I was always asking why, right? Why is this happening, right? Because that question sort of takes us deeper, simply, right? And I knew that the invisible spiritual realm is the foundation of who we are. Even though I couldn't see anything, I was able to feel. I think I got this from my mother, actually. But I also knew that the physical world, we are here. So somehow we want to integrate the two, right? So because people have all kinds of interpretation, there are a group of spiritual practices where they just kind of isolate themselves from the world to explore. I was more interested in how to integrate and bring that into this day-to-day life. And the state of expansion that we experience through meditation and different spiritual practices is wonderful. And the real work is to integrate that into our personality, because you cannot function and live in this physical world without thoughts and in feelings and belief. So forming the essence view, if anybody's watching this for the first time, we often talk about essence and personality, and essence view is the perception that we can form that allows the soul essence perspective to lead our life. So if somebody has a different, like a story in their life, and if they think that, let's say, life sucks, right? That's a story in the mind, right? If you wear a lens of the essence, the soul essence, how would God, how would soul view the world? Life is absolutely wonderful. Abundance is everywhere, freedom is everywhere. It's so good, right? Feeling good, feeling expansive, feeling flow, peace and ease, love, freedom is the experience of the essence, the soul essence, right? Anything other than that expansiveness that makes us resist and contract is uh, happens from letting that ego and mental construct and personality, distorted part of the personality, coming into our lens and creating the experience, because experience follows follow perception follows experience, and a perception, a belief, is the precursor of the perception, right? So if you have a certain belief, that becomes your lens, and that lens creates our experience. So the lens, the perception that we want to practice is the essence view. And then once you practice that, you begin shifting your belief to a more expansive state. Then, on a day to day basis, as you move along life and go through life, you are looking at from that place, and you see yourself a part of that, and everything becomes wonderful, right? It's interesting though, because as I speak that, I feel very expansive, right? So we are demonstrating that by talking about it and feeling about it, and that's how we create experience, but also that's how we form identity. And the words that we speak and the feeling that we experience is an important part of the formation of the identity. So that's why we want to be engaging in this energy a lot, right? To be forming that constantly, because personality and identity is not something that you kind of form boom one time and it's done. It's actually, it's a verb, yeah. It's happening all the time, constantly. There's no, it's like a gravity, right? There's no break. It's
Mm,
working all the time. So how can we moment to moment contribute in creating the essence view personality? And it's difficult to do that if you're focusing on the challenge and the problem and the past trauma and the wounds, because you're demonstrating that same energy over and over. So
mm.
the, yeah, essence view is, I call this young freedom through the mind. Means that how can you begin choosing your thoughts, choosing your belief, feeling, and the viewpoint that allows you to feel free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It. I mean, what was happening for me was it, when everything is calm or peaceful, it's easy. But life is not calm or peaceful all the time, and then certain triggers or things happen, and then there is a habitual response. And in the beginning, you I would only catch it afterwards, right? And this is why I think meditation is really wonderful, because in meditation, this is what you learn, right? Is you like suddenly like 5 minutes have passed and you went down a rabbit hole and you were like, oh, oh, I'm supposed to be meditating, and you get better at not going down the rabbit holes. And it's the same thing with this in everyday life. Is you get caught up in the moment, or something, the conversation triggers you, and and then so I only realized minutes later, hours later, that I went straight into the personality, and I've been there for however long. And then you start moving the noticing back till eventually you're noticing in the moment, and then you notice the habitual response coming, the thinking and feeling that normally operates in regard to this whatever's in front of me, and then going, I'm not going to do it like that, and then choosing to take the different way, the essence view, right? And the best expression that I have of this, Yuki, just to is, so I have this watch, right, and I needed to it was on this arm, but I have tattoos on my arm, and I wasn't getting the data off of the watch that I wanted, and I didn't know that the tattoos skews the data. So I was resetting the watch and contacting Samsung, and eventually on some random forum, I heard someone mentioned that the tattoos. And so I put it on this arm, and I go to sleep that night, and I think to myself, I wake up the next day and I look at my phone and all the information's there. Then the game becomes about wearing this watch on this arm after wearing it on this arm my entire life habitually. And it took a couple of months. Whereas now, when I get out of the shower and I take this off of the charging station, it goes on this arm. I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Right. But it definitely didn't happen overnight. There was many times where I would just get out of the shower, put on this, carry on my day. The next day, get in the shower or go to sleep that night, not see my sleep data or whatever, and be frustrated. And this whole game of trying to consciously teach myself to put the watch on the other arm, it's the same thing as trying to change my habitual thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
It's not easy,
Yeah.
but it's very
Creature habit.
doable.
Yeah. Creature
Yeah.
habit, and also the identity of the familiar self. Yeah. To be familiar with how you feel about you, and to but basically you do need to feel uncomfortable in order to change something. Yeah. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're not changing, right? Because it's in the box of the familiarity. Yeah, exactly.
So the last question I have for you, Yuki, sorry, just to go back to what we were talking about
Mhm.
earlier. What would you say, if any, is the difference between our community and people on social media that are talking about, personal brands or turning your hobby into a business, or all of, because that's very popular online, especially on the various social platforms. People are there's a big sort of, there's a marketing movement around this language of personal branding, become your personal brand. Where's this the essence view of that?
So we're living in this physical material world, but we are spiritual being. And when I say we are spiritual being, everything has a spiritual foundation. The tree has a spiritual foundation. The earth has a spiritual foundation. The universe itself has a spiritual foundation. So if you are addressing something without addressing the spiritual element, it will be incomplete. That's my perspective, right?
Mhm.
So you can never talk about identity without understanding the spiritual foundation. And what is branding? It's identity, right? So you can never have a complete understanding of your business brand without talking about your, I mean, personal, what is personal brand, right? Your unique identity of who you're being in this world and the gift and the voice that you're given. Without having a spiritual foundation, I don't think one can fully understand what that is. And I think because business, I really am not sure what the definition of success is for a lot of people in the world. And when it comes to business, and when we talk about success, what comes up for most people is the money that you earn and the make. The higher and the more you make the money, the more successful you are. Yeah.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people who, I mean, we have been sharing this, right? There are many millionaires who became millionaires and became miserable, not feeling something is missing internally, So I think the new definition of success in business is wholeness inside and financial growth outside. And the intention is to touch and serve others, to have everybody in this world able to see and shine the light in them. And we do that through our own light. So, business, marketing, personal branding, for me, living the life that I have lived here, I don't know how people are talking about that without having a psychological understanding of what identity is. And you cannot fully understand what psychology is without understanding the spiritual part of us. So,
Mm.
right, Soul Purpose Group, okay, we help people build their business by creating a personal brand, understanding what really identity and personality is, because we understand the spiritual foundation. So that would be probably the difference. And
Mm.
it's very interesting now that you ask me that question and you know speak out loud. It's almost dangerous people who are talking about personal brand and business without understanding the nature of psychology and identity and not coming from that spiritual foundation. People might be earning a lot of money, but we don't know how they're feeling inside, you know. Um, Robin Williams is a good example, right? That Tony Robbins often talks about, where you can have a massive accomplishment in the outside and not fulfill inside. And I mean, Tony talks about that's the ultimate failure, right? You appear to be so successful in the outside, but he committed suicide because he wasn't fulfilled inside.
Mm.
How bad can that be, right? Uh,
Mm.
you are being, and then the more, if somebody's like that, the more successful you become or you appear to become outside, you won't be able to get out of it. The only way out of it is to end the life. That's what he did. So, so I think it's time to, and I think the world is ready, right, to begin understanding the new definition of success. There needs to be an integration inside, and wholeness is the best terminology that I can think of, right? It's subjective for people what that means and feels like, and I think that's also another area that we need to step into, right? Because just like science, business also want a metrics, numbers that they can assess. But the true happiness, how can you measure happiness and an internal fulfillment, right?
Mm.
So I think the level of success needs to, the interpretation and definition of success needs to expand and redefine. And sometimes when people don't come from the spiritual foundation, they are curious about and they know that it exists, but because they cannot measure, they don't take it to an account for the business growth. But I think there is going to be a new way to approach this, and that is what's gonna, that is what needs to expand. Because
Mm.
then when somebody is incongruent with the outside and the inside, at some point, life is very honest. Life is going to show you what's in lack of alignment, and later on you are going to end up needing to address that.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. does that does that work? Does that work?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the last bit that you said, I think, is all of it. You know, I
Yeah,
think, yeah.
it's interesting. A lot of the answer to your question is something that I have always been aware of, right? But it's good to sort of express and describe that so
Mm.
people can hear that. And maybe because I have been on the journey of connecting the dots and integrating, I might be able to explain and describe what that is. But this sort of, I love the idea of doing this conversation, because when people hear, people are looking for something that explains what they're feeling, right? Because they're feeling internally something is not right, but that hasn't come up to the conscious awareness of how to explain and describe it. Only because I have been in the connecting the dot journey long enough that I have been able to, you know, bridge that gap, and I feel like that's what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Do you have any like a final
No,
comment?
I have a lot to think about now. Thank you, Yuki.
This one was a lot of like a lot of information, huh? And a lot of
Hmm.
angles of it. So usually when we record this, we're recording on August 12th, and I put up live right away. If you're watching this right away, we're gonna have a energetics of money training next week, and money is a spiritual idea. We are spiritual being. So if you're, you know, currently, let's say, struggling with the flow of money, and if you're curious about what really means to look at money from a spiritual perspective, you can join the Soul Purpose group, which is a space that we gather and communicate, and we explore the integration of who we are. And we're expanding rapidly. I think it's going to be 1,000 people very soon. And we would love to have every soul-led enthusiast and entrepreneurs, because we believe that we have something that is missing in the world. We are here to fill the gap and to integrate, and we are here to help everybody uh, awaken their gift. We are all artists of the soul, and to be able to use that to touch and serve the world. So check the link below, and then we will be waiting for everybody to join inside. So thank you, Jan, and thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll come back next week for episode 10. We need to do something big for 10.
Okay.